What's up YouTube, Capital G here, checking out the brand new Orphegel archetype that just got revealed in Soul Fusion. It's really interesting because I actually thought that the World Legacy storyline was over, but nope, I was wrong. Konami debated me. It is still going on. To give you guys, I guess, a quick recap, you remember in Flames of Destruction, it basically, she's all possessed and stuff, and she kills herself, and then you kind of have Ningirisu, who's like AWOL. He wasn't even in, like, I have no idea where the hell he was. Then you have Avram, who I guess is kind of depressed, and he's like, man, fuck life, I'm just gonna go wander around in the forest. He ends up meeting up with the Palladians, and I thought that that was just gonna be the end. I was like, all right, obviously Avram's mad that his girlfriend's dead. He's gonna wander around in the forest until he becomes an old man and dies or something like that. But nope, the story is actually continuing. Ib is freaking alive, although she is some type of weird, like, ghost girl type construct deal. And then Ningirisu is also back in this archetype. It's really interesting because now he apparently is evil, and I don't know, he looks all dark and edgy like Zane from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 3. I actually like his new look, man. I like the fact that they brought him back and now he's all evil. This archetype is entirely dark and it is all machine, and it also appears that it revolves around banishing cards from your graveyard to activate the main deck monsters' effects to basically like special summon and get bonus effects, and then the link monsters put those monsters that were banished back into your deck. So they kind of work together. Anyways, let's go ahead and break them down. The first card is Orphegel Cannon. That name's a little redundant, but whatever. Level 1 Dark Machine, Tuner Monster. Oh, it's a tuner. Okay, maybe there might be some synchros down the line. Interesting. Palladians had a tuner, and I don't think anything ever came of that, so I don't want to speculate too much. 500 attack, 1900 defense, hard once per turn on the effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard. It's built into all of the main deck dudes. Special summon one Orphegel from your hand, except another copy of Cannon. You cannot special summon monsters except dark monsters for the rest of the turn. Finally, some dark support. That used to be a big joke in the Yu-Gi-Oh community during the 5Ds days because of all the dark cards in the game. If you guys don't get that reference, this seems okay. I mean, any level 1, I'm going to say this until the end of time, any level 1 monster can be converted into Linkuriboh. So getting this into the graveyard doesn't really seem that difficult. Just normal summon it, Linkuriboh it, and boom, you can just activate the effect. So this is fine. Level 3, or excuse me, next card is Orphegel Scherzo Skeleton. This is a level 3 Dark Machine, 1200 attack and 1500 defense. All their defenses seem to be higher than their attacks. Very strange. Hard once per turn on the effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Orphegel monster in your graveyard except another copy of itself. Special summon that monster. You cannot special summon monsters except dark ones for the rest of the turn. This is a Monster Reborn effect, and I like the fact that this does help you summon the Link monsters back. And I'm guessing because this archetype has a Link 2, a Link 3, and a Link 4, this should help you climb the ladder relatively easily. And if you do climb the ladder, being able to special summon one of your boss monsters back seems pretty legitimate. This just seems any archetype that has a Monster Reborn, like Monster Reborns in archetypes are generally good. So I'm never going to slam when Konami builds or when Konami makes one for an archetype. Next up is Orphegel Devermento Devil. This is a level 4 Dark Machine monster, 1700 attack, 1400 defense. So this one has a better attack than defense, which is generally how you like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Hard once per turn on the effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one Orphegel monster from your deck, except another copy of Devil. You cannot special summon for the rest of the turn, except dark monsters. Alright, so this is probably the best of the three just because it special summons from the deck. You don't have to use any resources from your hand, and you don't have to rely on your graveyard, which sometimes relying on your graveyard can be a little rough in the first couple of turns. So I definitely think that this is a good card. So far, this deck seems to be, I mean, it seems like the effects all work pretty easily from the graveyard. I definitely like that. And then we have the new Orphegel version of Ib, and I think the most interesting thing about this card is she alive or is she dead? Has she been reborn, or is she kind of like I don't know, a living corpse or something like that? Like, you guys let me know. Has she been brought back to life by some dark magical spell? Is she basically a zombie? Does she have consciousness? I don't really know. I do know that she looks a whole lot like El Shaddai Construct. That was definitely the vibe I got when I saw this card, but that's definitely Ib. You can tell it's kind of obvious just by looking at the card, but the fact that she has 1800 attack, which was the original Ib's attack, like that pretty much confirms it. So let's go ahead and break down Orphegel Galatea. This is a link to, it is Dark Machine effect, 1800 attack, top right and bottom right, or excuse me, bottom left are your link points. It requires 2 monsters, including at least 1 Orphegel monster. All the Orphegel link monsters require other Orphegel monsters. Konami obviously does not want you splashing these guys really into other archetypes. I think that makes a lot of sense. The second effect is the hard once per turn. And the first effect, it's just kind of a protection effect. It says this link card cannot be destroyed by battle. Wait, didn't the original Ib have an effect very similar to that? To like, if she was linked and she was like destroyed, you could end up launching another monster or something. I feel like Ib definitely had some type of protection effect. So that kind of makes a lot of sense now that I'm thinking about that. The second effect says you can target one of your banished machine monsters, return that monster to the deck, then you can set 1 Orphegel spell or trap card directly from your deck to your side of the field. I love that effect. Not only does it get your banished Orphegel monsters back into your deck so that you can use them later and you can reuse their effects, but being able to essentially get any of the archetypes for the or any of the archetype spells and traps on your field for free, and your opponent can't Ash Blossom it, like that's kind of awesome. I mean, what's not to like with that? Hopefully they get some spells, because so far all we have is traps. Then we have the card that I was really looking forward to. This is the new Ningirisu, and I have to say I love his new getup, his new redesign, essentially, because it's not to say that his old style was completely shit, but I just wasn't a big fan of that fake-ass ninja, raggedy wanderer thing. I mean, he had kind of a scarf. It was looking really funky. He looked like a damn hobo. Now you look at him, and he's looking kind of sophisticated, but also a little dark and edgy. He looks like he's actually about to perform at, like, the Grand Ole Opry or something like that, like he's about to do some type of classical music performance. But I like it because he's elegant, he's sophisticated now. He's got himself, you know, a whole suit, and it's looking really nice and clean instead of that raggedy ass, you know, scarf that he had before. Now he has got a little bit of money, so he decided to go ahead and change his name. He's got a little Hollywood on it. So his name is Orphegel Ningirisu. Didn't really change it that much. I mean, Ningirisu, Ningirisu, basically the same thing. He's a Link 3 Dark Machine effect monster. 2500 attack, just like Ningirisu. His link points are top left, top and bottom right. Is kind of random link points, but it kind of makes sense with his effect. The second effect is the hard once per turn. The first effect is this link card cannot be destroyed by card effects. That's nice. The old Ningirisu didn't have any type of protection, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, his second effect is you can target 2 of your banished machine monsters, return those monsters to the deck. Then you can send 1 monster your opponent controls that this card points to the graveyard, but this card cannot attack this turn. I think that this is a pretty fair effect, in my opinion, because this card does have a couple of link points that point up towards your opponent. So I think linking it or having it point towards them won't be the most difficult thing in the world, although, you know, the fact that this card can't attack does kind of hold it back a little bit, but it's still kind of non-targeting removal. So I think that's kind of good, the fact that it doesn't have to target, and it still recovers your Orphegel monsters that are banished. And this guy does 2 of them, so it makes it really easy to keep kind of, you know, get your deck, or keep having your deck do what it does. The final link monster in this archetype is Orphegel Orchestrion. This guy is a link 4 Dark Machine monster, 3000 attack, so he is the biggest of the boss monsters. His link points are kind of random. They're top, top right, bottom left, and then bottom, so they kind of do a little crisscross type deal. It requires 2 effect monsters, including 1 Orphegel monster, so again, all the link monsters need Orphegel monsters to go into. But again, I think that you might actually just climb the ladder with these guys, and then use your Monster Reborn dude to just summon back one of the link monsters. Maybe that's a viable play. It says, while this card is linked, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Oh, that's kind of nice. Okay, so you can still target it, but outside of that, it gets a little bit of protection. It says you can target 3 of your banished machine monsters, return them to the deck. Hey, shout outs to ABC, by the way. If your opponent controls any face-up monsters that are linked, the attack and defense of those monsters become 0, and their effects are negated. I actually think, maybe I'm wrong about this, I think that this card was meant to maybe counter the nightmares, because, you know, nightmares like to do the whole co-link thing and all that good stuff. So I think that this works well, because if you do happen to go second and your opponent does have a bunch of monsters on the field that are link, Palladians are very similar to that too, where they like to get a whole bunch of their cards link. If you do happen to summon this, basically it's kind of a lose one turn for everything, including link monsters. So I think that that can be a very powerful effect. Now we got the trap cards. The first one is Orphegel Attack, and this one has really interesting lore because it has the Paladin of the Vast Sky, who is basically Avram. It has him fighting against NINGIRISU, and I really want to see, because these guys used to fight together when they were the World Chalice. Like, they were buddies, man. They were, you know, fighting battles against the crawlers. Like, what happened to the good old days? Now you guys are trying to kill each other. Anyways, it's a normal trap. It says when a monster declares an attack, you contribute one Orphegel or World Legacy monster you control, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish that monster. Okay, so I don't know, man. This kind of reminds me of like a shitty D prison type of deal, dimensional prison. It does target, however, you don't have to actually target the attacking monster. I think that you only run this card specifically because like Galatea can set it. I don't really think it's overly impressive. Now, if it would have banished every monster your opponent had on their side of the field, that would have been fucking nuts. Or if you get, even if it did have still the targeting in it, if you got to target like 2 cards, because this is basically like a -1. You're giving up the trap and a monster to be able to get rid of one of your opponent's cards. I don't know. It feels like it needed some power creep in there. It should have been able to banish like 4 cards or some shit like that. The final card in the archetype is Orphegel Core, continuous trap card. It says the first effect, once per turn you can banish one monster you control, or in your graveyard target one Orphegel or World Legacy card you control except Orphegel Core. That card cannot be targeted by effects for the rest of the turn. Konami did this before with something like Safe Zone. The problem was you kind of had to prematurely flip it over. You couldn't use it in response to something like Effect Veiler or Forbidden Lance. You can't use it in response to something like Impermanence because your card has already been targeted at that point. Even if you do happen to prematurely flip it over, I can still use Effect Veiler because my Veiler will actually resolve before your core has resolved. So it doesn't even work well that way either. Honestly, that effect has never really been all that good. If you want targeting like protection, you need stuff like Magispectors or Cosmo, you know, big ships where they just can't be targeted at all. Second effect is if an Orphegel or World Legacy card you control except this card would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send this card to, you control to the graveyard instead. That effect might be more useful because that basically protects you from battle and it protects you from card destruction. I feel like the first effect is really not that good, the protection from targeting. I think the protection from battle and card destruction, which is much more likely, I think that that's better. To me, this archetype really needs ways of getting cards in the graveyard really easily. Maybe stuff like card destruction, or I mean, oh my god, in the OCG where grass is at 3, 60 card Orphegel for the win. But you guys let me know what you think of this archetype and where do you think the lore is going. There's no way Konami's going to end the lore the way it is, so I'm saying in the next set we probably are going to have, no, not probably, we definitely are going to have another World Legacy archetype. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.